the session. Before we start with the, well, let's wait probably one more minute. But before we start with the official topic for this morning, there is something that we need to discuss before that. Okay. And this is because we actually need this, well, we really need this information for what we are going to be doing today. Okay. When we reach 23, I will continue with the class. Now we're 21 attendees, but I am one of those. Hey, who's gone? Okay, Rodrigo's having connection issues. Okay, connectivity issues. Okay. Okay, so this is something that I wanted to discuss last session, but we ran out of time. But this is really something really important, because what we are going to be doing these days, essentially, I don't want to say in an independent way, but something that we need to continue working on while we discuss some other topics, is how to handle our population. Okay? So remember that this was the way that we had the population with the percentage of those who didn't report their age, and we actually learned how to get rid of that. I don't know why I didn't save those changes, but I'm gonna do it really fast in here. So this process of prorating our population is just taking into account the proportion that each group represents in the total population. And that's it. Okay, so let me just change these things so I can copy and paste this from there. Okay. We'll have this one. And we should get the same totals, okay? So this is for the total population. You have to do this also for the male population and female population. So I'm not gonna do it right now, but you also have to do it for the individual age population. And I think that's the one I didn't save it. I don't know why. Okay. And I'm just gonna do it for the, for the total population here. So Rodrigo, essentially what I'm doing is I'm just, give me a second. I'm just doing the thing that I told you a couple of sessions ago that you should do with the population without this, with unspecified age, the prorating process. But I didn't save my changes from that class, so I'm just essentially doing it again. Just give me one more minute. I think I use the not the correct one now. I use the male population. Mauricio. Okay. Now to okay, ping. Yes, so we have the total population after the prorating process. Okay, so why is this important? Because now we have the correct population, or we got rid of this unspecified age population, and something that we need to do now, sorry, is to move these populations in order to get our mid-year population, okay? So this is something that you did for your total population, but now you have to do it for your age groups. So you could theoretically estimate growth rates for each age group, and then independently move age groups like to mid-year population. But the easiest way to do it is just estimate the total growth rate for the population and then use that same growth rate for each age group or for each individual age. And just let me write here the date for the census. So this is February 14, 2000. And then this is October 17, 2005. This was June 12, 2010. This was March 15, 2015. And this was, again, March 15 and 20. Okay. I don't need that much information. Okay. Okay. So what I did here right now in these cells, again, I just got the official dates for each census, or the official date that we have for the information. Then I just got the time between 2000 2005 between the census and the count. Then I estimate the exponential growth rates. And using June 13 of each year, I estimate the time that I need to use to move my population in order to get mid-year population, okay? So now what I'm going to do is essentially move these age groups in order to have my mid-year population. My first row is the total, so I'm not gonna do that. I should probably, yes. Again. No, on the first column. I always hate this. Now, it should be one. Yes, so right now I'm just doing it for the total population, but we have to do it for men and women. Okay. So again, it's just the same process that we had before. In order to estimate population age 0 to 4, it's gonna be my total population age 0 to 4 times the exponential e to the d times this growth rate. And I can essentially copy, well, let me, this population, the time is going to be almost the same, and this is going to be, yes. Okay, something is wrong here. My population, is not, this is the growth rate, this one. So you need to move your populations to mid-year using your age groups. And guess what? You also have to do that for individual age, which I'm not going to do right now, but it's the same process. You just estimate the growth rates for the total population between 2000 and 2005. And here I need to change something, I just remember. Because for the last year, I'm going to be using the previous, the last growth rate that I have. So just be careful with this last year, okay? So by doing that, I have population for age groups on June the 30th of each year, okay? And by doing that, now we are gonna be able to compare populations. So please do that because we need our populations being in the middle of the year before, I think for next week. Yes, always 30 de junio, all the time. Okay, that's the one that we use in demography when we are going to estimate rates. Because remember, yes, for everybody, men, women, age groups, and individual age. So it's a lot of things. Okay, the first time that you do this is gonna be tricky because as you can see now I was forgetting, okay, I forgot this, I need to fix this. But the important thing is for you to estimate these growth rates, like to have these growth rates like correctly estimated, and then be able to move your populations to the middle of the year. Because if I do this for men and women, I am going to use the same growth rates. Again, I could estimate growth rates by gender, by age group, but then that would mean that we would need some other columns with just growth rates, and then we can move our population. We could move our population. So let's keep it simple. Let's use the total population growth rates to move our population by gender, by age, essentially assuming that that behavior is the behavior for everybody, which is probably not always true. For instance, if you're working with, let's say, Mexico City, which is a state that is experiencing this aging process, and we're going to discuss aging in a couple of sessions. What is happening is that the youngest population, the youngest age group, is actually declining, but the total population is not declining that much. It's almost the growth rate is almost zero, but it's not negative. So for that scenario, I would probably estimate growth rate for each specific age group. So by doing that, I can essentially decrease the population for the youngest, the first age groups, and then for the oldest age groups, I could increase the population if I'm moving the population into the future. But again, that is something that we probably could do if we had more time, or if we were essentially to talk about these specific topics. But right now, we just need to move our population to mid-year. So let's just do it like that, using these same growth rates for everybody, men and women, and for all age groups. Okay? So you have to do this. For that is kind of a parallel activity that you need to work on. Okay, and of course, double check that what you are doing here, what you are getting makes sense. Like, I would probably pay attention to this. So this is 35 to 39, 2010. I have 8,387,000, and then 8,402,000. So it makes sense. So it's not changing for some reason, because sometimes when you do this, something can go wrong, and then you just end up with crazy populations down here. So just double check, just kind of try to understand the population dynamics and try to see if this is making sense. Okay? So questions on this? Exactly. So we need population by age groups, and then we need to do the same for individual ages. So essentially move this to mid-year as well. And you're going to see why, because what we are going to discuss this morning is we need the information like this. Okay? So I think I'm going to share my entire screen. So I think it's better. And I have not information that you cannot see open right now. No, everything is fine. No, I mean, it's not that I'm hiding something, but sometimes I have, I don't know, somebody's transcript open, and that is confidential information, but no, everything is fine. Okay, so you're going to be working on that, but something that probably I have mentioned a couple of times, that is something that we just need to be aware of, is that when we get information from the census, or when we get information for any statistical source of information, you can call it a census, survey, administrative records, any information that we get, there are always issues with the quality of the information that we are using. Okay? Some issues are really, really complicated to fix. Some other, we can deal with those things and say, okay, yes, whatever, it's something that we can handle. But some of these things, actually, we will have to fix the information. Okay? So let's talk about the quality of the demographic information, and essentially how we can tell if the information is good, is accurate, is bad, and so on. Okay? So the main sources of error that we have when we use demographic information comes from different things. Well, the first error that we have, and it's something that we cannot do, there's nothing we can do about that, is the error that the census has in terms of coverage. Essentially, by definition, the census should include everybody in the population, but that doesn't happen. But that doesn't happen because, well, and I'm pretty sure, well, I don't know if you were following the news, and I was doing that because, again, I'm a big demographer, nerd or whatever, or a nerd of demography. But there are always issues with certain populations. This last year, the problem was COVID, so a lot of people stopped opening the door to people from INEGI. But there was also one really popular example here in Tlaxcala. Well, here in Tlaxcala, I'm saying here because I am in Puebla, in Cholula, but right next door, there was this municipio where people decided that INEGI was not going to get into the municipio, so they couldn't do it. So we have no information on that people. And yes, INEGI has certain ways to estimate that population, but we just have an estimate of that population. So we don't really know for sure. So something could have happened. Probably everybody decided to kill all kids in that municipio, and we have no idea of that thing. Okay, so that was a big problem. And these things happen sometimes with, believe it or not, with really, really, really rich neighborhoods. Not the with population in poverty, they're really open to share information, but these gated communities where you have to ask permission to the administration from the residential areas, and then all these things. Sometimes they don't let it get in. Why? Because they think, well, in Tlaxcala, I don't remember the issue that they have with INEGI. It is a really small community, so I don't remember what was the issue, but essentially the Presidente Municipal was like, no, you are not getting here. Because when people from INEGI, they already know where they're going to have issues. For instance, imagine going all the way to Batopilas, is this municipality in Chihuahua where we have Tarahumaras. So it's up in the mountains. So with indigenous population, INEGI already knows how to handle this situation, because sometimes they are like, okay, why are you coming and ask me all this information? So what they do, they usually go like a couple of weeks before, or probably a month before that, and they try to contact like the old people, like Presidente Municipal, if that was the case, or the priest from the church, or the, I don't know, the highest priest in this indigenous community, or people who has like power or impact in the population. And they talk to them, and they ask for, as a favor, to talk to everybody and allow the INEGI to collect the information. And that's usually really a successful approach. But sometimes people, first, by law, we are required. So it's not something that we can go like, no, I'm not going to give you my information. Essentially, that is in the law. We have the obligation to answer questions from INEGI. Now, of course, a lot of things that by law we are supposed to do in Mexico, we don't do, or some people don't do those things. And what happens is we have these trust issues. Some people think that INEGI is going to collect information. For instance, they ask for income. And even though we know that information regarding income is really not of good quality in the census, because people don't tell the truth, there are some other ways that we can estimate income, and actually specialized surveys that collect that information. But sometimes people don't want to share that information because, of course, we know we live in a country where we have violence, and we have cartels, and we have all these things. And even INEGI is really good at keeping information safe. So even when I was working for CONAPO, and like CONAPO is National Population Council, the Consejo Nacional de Población, is part of Secretaría de Gobernación, and INEGI is essentially the provider of information. I was working at CONAPO, and even for me to get access to more classified information, essentially I could get information as detailed as the block on the street. So I could tell, for instance, I could identify my information in the census because I know where I live. Well, I know where I was living back then. So I could find my information, but that was only for me. And in order for me to get access to the information, there was a clearance process that was really, a clearance process that was really long. And I had to use like 5 different passwords, and I could only use one computer, and he was tracking what I was doing with that information all the time. So, and they're really good at keeping this information, confidential information, as that, as confidential. So sometimes people think that just because INEGI is asking these questions, everybody's going to have access to the information, which is not what happens. And that happens essentially in rich communities. Like, as I was telling you, these gated communities, sometimes they don't let INEGI get in, and it's hard. Okay, but that is something that has to do with INEGI, with field operations and whatever they have to do in order to get the information. Once we get the information, once we have access to the information, which is what we did, we still are going to find errors. And essentially, we have errors in single years of age, essentially people not reporting their age accurately, but that also happens in group data. Reporting the extreme old age, again, if you ask my grandmother, well, I have two grandmothers, my grandparents are dead now, but if I ask one of them, how old are you? She can tell me right on the spot, okay, I'm 87. And she's very good because she has a business, she has been handling like money, numbers all the time, so she's really like awake on those things. The other one is not the same. So I don't think she even knows how old she is, even though she's 1 year younger than the other one. But again, we know these things happen, so we know there's some issues there. Sometimes, and this is a good example. In 2005, for that count, I was studying. I was at UNAM, and people from INEGI just got to my place. I wasn't there. I was living with my brother in this apartment that it was on the second floor of a big house. So the owner of the apartment was living downstairs. And he was a really nice guy, but he was really old. And I think not until I finished my master's and I was about to go to the PhD, he thought for the longest time that I was in high school. So he didn't know I was in college. He didn't know I was working. He didn't know I was studying my master or getting my master's degree. So for him, I was really young. So I'm pretty sure that he answered the information from that count. So I know my information is not accurate in that. But again, I wasn't around. For the last one, I was really following people. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Sometimes people don't even know when they were born, and that's an issue. Or just people that say, I don't want to tell you my age. Why are you asking that? Okay. So we have this failure to report age, the unspecified age already. We can get the percentage of that population, or the proportion that population represents in the total population before doing the prorating approach that we did. So that was something that we can essentially do. But we can go more into specifics. So if we plot age from the census, I don't know what year this is, but I can do it I'm just going to do it for 2020. Okay, so I think it's 2020, but it doesn't matter if I plot this information, we get something like this, okay? So of course, if we get something like this, we can tell that there's something going on, right? Because unless we know that every few years, I don't know, people were dying and then people were having lots of kids and things that we can identify, like tracking history in the country, we know that this is not correct, right? If this information was accurate, we would expect something probably more like this, right? Something going in the middle. And yes, we will have some movement, not going to be as like a totally smooth line, but some ups and downs. For instance, here I would spread some up and down. But again, it should look something like that, right? Like the red line that I just drew. So we can look at this in a graph and we say, okay, yes, this is bad, right? But if you pay attention to what is happening here, yes, if the first year is kind of complicated to keep track of these things, here we have going up and down, then again up, and look where this information is going up. It's going up around 30, then 35 again a little bit, then around 40, 45, 50. If we go back, this would be 25, Here we have in 20, for some reason, goes down. And as you can see, it kind of repeats every 5 years, right? So something is going on when people reporting their age, that we have this excess or sometimes lack of population in a specific age, right? So we know this happens, and this doesn't happen only in Mexico, this happens everywhere. And it's called age hipping. In Spanish, would be, I don't think we have a term for Spanish, but essentially it's concentración o reporte de edad, the reporte de edad. But we have the concept in English. So essentially what we're seeing is that people tend to prefer specific digits, not a specific age, but specific digits. Essentially, if we are, for instance, most of you are probably 21 or 20 right now, so that's fine, but think about people who's 29 or 31. Probably they would rather go with 30. Or people being 34 and 36, probably they will go with 35. So we know that happens. People tend to prefer digits, specific digits, and those specific digits are usually 5 and 0, okay? So essentially we tend to round our age. So since we know this happens, there's a way that we can measure how bad this is, right? Or the impact that this has in our population. So the main assumption that we have is that essentially if we know people are moving from 29 to 30 and for 31 to 30, it doesn't matter, because if I take these three populations and I get the average, I should get more or less my population age 30, right? So again, I know there's something going on, but at the end of the day, if I include all these populations and I get the average, I should get really close to the real population, okay? So that is the assumption that we follow when we estimate the next index. So this is called Whipple's index. It was developed by, I don't remember his first name, but his last name was Whipple, where he said, okay, we know that people are centering their age around 0 and 5, okay? So let's use this assumption of linearity, essentially, and say, okay, so what I know is if I take one specific age, any age right now, and if I take like those who are 2 years younger, let's say that this is 27, and I take 25, 26, 27, 28, and 29, if I add these 5 individual ages, this should get really close to 5 times my population that I have in my middle group, right? If we have no big changes in population, okay? So using this approach, he said, okay, let's say that I want to do it for 25, so this would happen, right? It's not equal, but it has to be really close to that number. And for 30, we can do the same. So this is not true for really young or for really old ages, because as you can see, I don't know if I deleted the graph. See, yes. But if you can see from here, we can actually use that assumption of linearity probably here in the middle, but not the first age groups. And at the end, we have some issues that we need to take care of. So essentially, we are going to use this assumption and we are going to estimate one index, okay? So this index is telling me, okay, if you take the population starting in 25, like 5 times that population, and then 5 times population age 30, and then 5 times those 35, and 5 times those 40, all the way to 60. And then I just add everybody, like individual ages from 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, and then for the next one, I would have to add 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. So essentially, what I'm doing, I'm taking these individual pieces and I am putting them together, right? So in the numerator, I have these things: 5 times population 25, 5 times population 30, and so on. And in the denominator, I have these individual ages, okay? So if we do this, we can estimate how bad this is, okay? So we're gonna use the age range from 23 to 62. Okay, so now, if everybody is reporting their age the way they should, then these two numbers should be about the same, right? If everybody is actually reporting their age. So if they're about the same, then the best case scenario is this is 100, because this should be close to 1 times 100, that would be 100. Now, if for some reason everybody is reporting their age in digits that end in 5 or 0, essentially, I don't have people reporting 23, 24, 26, and 27. I only have people reporting age 25. Then this number up here is going to be 5 times this number down here. So the worst case scenario, this will go to 500. And that is the limits, but we have these like thresholds that we can use to say how good the information is for a country, okay? And not even countries with really, really good census have perfect information. So I think there are a couple of countries who have really highly accurate information, but most countries nowadays are in the fairly accurate information, okay? So let's estimate this index, because this is really, really easy to estimate. And I'm gonna do it for the total population, but guess what? You can do it for total male and female population, and then you will have to. And I will do it as well. So according to this formula, you go back here. I'm just gonna create my new rename. I'm just gonna call it quality. Okay. So repulse index. So what do I need? 5 times population 25, 30, 35. Okay. So I'm just gonna go 5 times population, and for this reason I need my individual ages. I'm gonna do it for all years. It is not really that complicated. 25, then 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, and 60. So there are 9, 4, 9, 4, 9, 4, 9. Okay, that's fine. Okay. So I have the number that I need up in the formula, and then I just need to add all single ages from 23 to 62, sorry. And down here, I'm gonna go here. Give me a second. I am pulling this formula. Yes, with the prorated mid-year populations. So this is an accumulative process. So again, you need to be working on these things little by little. And yes, at the beginning of the semester is going to be a lot of these things. So how do you know when to use single age and age groups? Well, it's based on the formula here. So here is just the way that I'm writing this, but this is population when I equals 5, population 25. So that is individual age. So this is with individual age. We're gonna use age groups later in the semester, like next session. But right now it's individual age. Okay, so this is 2000, 2005, 2010, 2020. And this is the reason I have been telling you, be careful on how you display your information in Excel. I'm missing the times 100, that's fine. Times 100, okay. Because since I use the formula and I have all my information in columns, I can just copy the same formula. Okay, so this is the total population. Okay, so according to this index, is the best year was 2010 with 114. The worst year was 2005 with 118. But let's see what quality we have. Actually, we are here. Exactly. We're just measuring the quality of our information. We are in approximate information. So again, yes, we have issues, but the information is approximate, is not perfect, but it's not really bad, right? Remember that these can go from 100 to 500. So we are 100, 114, 118, so we are in here. So there's nothing we can do about that. Again, this is the information that we got from INEGI. Of course, probably some of you, for instance, I don't know if any of you is working with Aguascalientes. Aguascalientes has really good information. So I'm not sure if Aguascalientes even it can move to fairly accurate, but at least the value that you will get for Aguascalientes is going to be something about like probably 110, 111. And so I don't remember if you can fall in here. And the reason for that is that, guess what? Aguascalientes hosts INEGI's headquarters. So the big building from INEGI is in Aguascalientes. And that was something that happened in 1987. After the 1985 earthquake, they realized like, okay, it is not a good idea to have all the information in Mexico City because something like this can happen. So they started looking for a state where they can move INEGI, and they came up with Aguascalientes, where they don't have earthquakes, no volcanoes, not big rivers, not hurricanes. Essentially, it's probably one of the safest states in terms of natural disasters. And that's the reason they moved INEGI to Aguascalientes. But everybody knows INEGI because it's a huge building, employs lots of people there. So that's the reason Aguascalientes has good information. So everybody knows at least somebody who works at INEGI or Nissan, because Nissan also has a big plant in Aguascalientes. Which one is the worst? I don't remember. I don't remember what it was. Probably, I don't remember if it was Oaxaca, Chiapas, or Guerrero. Those states. But again, I don't have the information right now. But again, when I say the worst, it's not like they're getting 175. No. Like most states are going to be here in the approximate. Okay, when you download information from INEGI, that is something that is doing right now. You're getting information as text. Okay, can you wait after the session, Ricardo? Or well, essentially what you can do is just en la columna junto a donde tengas información o abajo, ponle igual a el valor que tienes por 1, multiplica todo por 1, y ya que los tengas, los copias como valores en los originales y ya. O sea, hay que reemplazarlos. Por alguna razón, INEGI está haciendo eso ahora. Okay. So this is the first approach to the quality of our information, and I did it before. So when I told you that I have to do it, I did it. And we have these values. Again, we don't have significant changes between men and women, but something important here. Even a more, I don't know how to call it, like modern people, whatever, we still have some misogynistic thinking in ourselves. And whenever you ask people around, so who do you think lies the most, or who do you think is worse at reporting their age? Chances are they're going to tell you women. But no, in reality, women, with the exception of a couple of years, women are getting better at reporting their age than men, at least in big senses. Again, the difference is not that big, but this is something important. There are no significant differences, but women are reporting their age in a better way than men, which is something that I really like because it goes against what people would think. And again, when women report their age worse is for a really slight difference, like 0.2, 0.4, but the difference is 0.5 and 0.7. So again, when they actually report their age better, is way better than when they do it worse. But in general, we see that the information for Mexico is approximate. what are we going to do about it? We will do something about it, but that's a topic that we're going to discuss in like next week. Okay. So this is Whipple's index, and this is fine. But remember that what this is telling us is people, or the concentration that we have around 0 and 5. This is not an 8. Sorry, this is my ampersand, whatever. Between 0 and 5. So this is fine. This is a good approach. But we know we can do better, right? We can get more into specific details and actually tell what is going on for more digits. Okay, so we have another approach, which is called Meyer's blended method. So this has been around for a long time now, but it's really good at explaining what is happening. So the official definition of this blended method is what I have here. So this method consists on determining the proportion that population ending in a given digit is of the total population, 10 times varying by the particular starting age for any. This is all confusing. Okay, so what I like to do, instead of giving you a definition, is let's estimate these together. Okay, so with the exception of Ricardo, who has issues with the information, if you have your information by individual age, at least for the total population, like follow me. If you don't, just pay close attention. Okay, wonderful. Pay close attention, because then you will have to replicate this, and this is more time consuming than Whipple's. Okay, so what this guy does is, let's follow this recipe. Essentially, he defines these populations, P sub I. Okay, and he says, okay, this is population age. If I equals 0, it would be population age 10, 20, 30, and so on till 80. And then if I equals 3, it would be population 13, 23, 33, 43. So essentially, he's adding population with based on their end, the last digit in this age. So let's estimate these things. So I'm just going to do it here. So Meyer's, and I'm just going to start with I. 0, 1, 2, 3, all the way to 9. So these are the possible values of I, right? The digits that we have. Now, PI. According to this guy, is add all populations 0 to, well, with 0 as the last digit. Okay. So let's go to individual age, starting in 10. I'm going to do 2000, because now it is more complicated to do all years at the same time. So that'll be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, and 80. Like that. And I think I can copy and paste. Yes. Then we're going to do the same for every single digit. Okay? So that's the first step. We're good. Now, next step. Repeat the same process, but just don't include the first population. Essentially, now the, how do you say prima? Whatever. P sub I, whatever. It's going to be it's going to start in 20. It's going to be 20, 30, 40, 50, and then if I equals 4, it's going to be 24, 34, and so on. Okay, so let's repeat this. So I'm lazy, so I'm just going to, don't copy and paste the formula, just go here into the formula that we have. And then you can paste it and just delete the first element. and you have it there. Remember, work smart, not hard. That's the key. Mhm. Okay, we have these two populations. That's fine. Now what? Okay, he and this is here when I see when I mean here I mean Myers. He defined these weights. So he said, okay, the first set of weights is going to be I plus 1, and then the second set of weights is going to be 9 subtracting I. Where did he get this? There's a huge proof mathematical development. If you Google Myers blended method 1940, you're gonna find it. But it's again, if you have time and you want to do it, do it. Okay. So the first one is I plus 1, so essentially 1, and the next one is 9 subtracting. So the key thing to double check here is that each one of these, if you add the two weights, I just use the one for apostrophe in English. So in Mac, it should be right next to the right in the same as the question mark. Yeah. Right there. Okay. So they should add to 10. So that's, we double check, and yes, 1 and 9, 2 and 8, 3 and 7. So that's fine. Okay. This is cool. Now, what's next? Okay, it should look like this. Again, I didn't include populations, but again, this is a table that you should be able to do and to replicate. Okay. Now, you say, okay, wait and add these two populations. So P sub I times A sub I plus the ones with the prima. I don't know, say prima, is prime? No, because prime is something of good quality. Probably yes, whatever. Okay, so let's do this. Times AI plus I times AI. So it's this times this plus this times this. Okay. There you go. Okay, we did that. Now here comes the interesting thing. We're going to get for each digit the proportion that this thing represents of the total. Okay, so first we need to add the total value for these things. So that's an easy thing to do. So we just get the total, and then the estimated proportion. So I'm just gonna type proportion because I'm not gonna write all this formula in Excel. Okay, so it's gonna be this, the first one divided by the total, and then the second one, and so on. And you're probably wondering, like, why are we doing all these things now? What is the meaning of this? Here comes the real meaning of all these things. If population were to, well, if everybody in the population declared their age in the correct digit, so each digit should have, on average, 10% of the population, right? And I'm not saying that 10% of the population is going to be age 10, but no, like if I take into account those who are age 10, 20, 30, 40, and so on, and those should account for 10% of the population, right? Because again, it's like, unless I know something is wrong in my population or something happened, that, I don't know, in 1945, somebody went crazy and killed all babies. Then, but we know that didn't happen, at least in Mexico. So each digit should represent 10% of my population. Okay, digits. Remember, we're talking about digits. This total, it should be different. Okay, if you're using the same information that I'm using, it should be the same. But if you're using the information for your state, it should be totally different. Yes, Frida? The first one, I don't know what are you referring to.
O sea, el total que tuvimos desde el principio de población.
Ah, yes, ok, eso es importante. Debe ser el mismo después del prorrateo, pero ya que lo llevan a mitad de año y lo suman, ya debe ser distinto porque ya están en otro momento. Pero el prorrateo debe conservarse, o sea, el total debe ser igual antes y después de prorratear. Ya que lo llevan a mitad de año, debe cambiar. Okay, sorry. Okay, here. So the easy way to see how far we are falling, or where, yes, how far from the 10% we are, is just subtracting 0.1. So let's do that. So I'm just gonna call it deviation, but just deviation just because I have no creativity. And what we are going to get is some digits are going to have positive values, some digits are going to have negative values, okay? So this is probably the first place, or the first, the moment where I would stop for a few seconds or a few minutes and try to understand what is going on. Those with positive values, I'm just gonna use green to indicate which ones are positive. True. Is 0, 2, 5, and 8. With negative values, we have 1, 3, I'm just gonna use yellow. 1, 3, 4, 6, 7, and 9. So essentially, this means that people somehow are moving, or are rounding their age, or are declaring their age like into 0, and they're avoiding 1. So what could happen is that a lot of these people who has 1, like 21 or 31, 41, are moving to 20 or 30, but probably they're also moving to 22 or 32. So they, for some reason, they're just not comfortable saying that they're 21. I don't know. You tell me. You're around that age. I don't remember. I don't remember when I was 21. Well, I don't remember every single day of that age. Again, college. But I have no issues with that age. But the same thing happens with 3. Sometimes some of them are moving to 32. Some of them are moving probably all the way to 35, and so on. So we have this distribution of like preference and avoidance of digit. So what we say is, if a digit has a positive value, we say that this is a digit of attraction. So essentially, people are moving into that digit. And if we have a negative value, we say that's a digit of rejection. People are not so happy declaring that digit. Okay, so this is nice because we can actually see what happens with specific digits. And for instance, in Mexico, we are good with number 8. I don't remember if what that was 8 bad luck or good luck in China. I don't remember which one, like what was, but again, we will see some cultural factors affecting the information that we have. Okay, so we have this, but again, we just need a way to summarize all these things. So that's the last part of the digit of the Myers-Briggs method. So now what we're going to do, we're going to take the absolute value of this difference that we just estimated, and then multiply by, I think I'm missing and we need to add these things. We're going to add them and then getting this number. Okay, so let me take the absolute value of this. and I'm missing the 1/2 times 0.5 times 100. Okay. So what I'm missing in this formula is this. So this is the final value of the index. Okay. This is only for the total population. No, this is for the total population in Mauricio, what are you doing? Okay, in 2000. Okay, of course we can replicate this for men, women, for every single year. And again, it's time consuming, but again, if you are really practical on the way that you input your information in Excel, you can replicate this really easily. Es más talacha, yes, but we also get more information. So from here, this is 2000, so I got the same 398. Yes, 398. So the same. Here we see more. The interpretation of this is essentially what percentage of population are removing their digit or something like that. Which again, I just don't like that interpretation, but we can see that again sometimes women have worse behavior. In 2005, they were all the same. 2010, women reported their age better than men. 2015, better. 2020, better. Okay, when we go into specific digits. Okay, so this is really interesting because now we can also say, okay, based on Whipple's index, what's happening is that the information for Mexico was approximate. So it's something, we have some information, and we have lots of people declaring their age in digits 0 and 5. But essentially, if we pay attention to Meyer's blended method, what we see is that, yes, we have this concentration in specific digits, particularly in ages ending in 0, 2, 5, and 8. So we have more information about our states. And this is going to be a pattern that you're going to find essentially in every state in Mexico. Okay? So yes, you have to do this. And actually, this is one activity that you have to submit. So don't wait until the one day before, because you have to do this. And again, you should get values around 3, 4 for Mexico. So again, unless you get like a crazy value of 15, don't worry. But values should be around these things. Okay. Okay, this is just a nice way to display these things. So I'm just plotting the digits and paying attention or noticing how the black bold line is where if everybody were to report their age, the digit the way it is. And we can see that we have some significant concentration of people declaring 0. So essentially, lots of people are moving to 0. We see that 1 is a digit of rejection. 2 is also a concentration digit. Yes, I think so. 2 is also a concentration digit, but it's not as significant as 0 and 5, for instance. So we see that the digit that has the most significant like attraction effect is 0. I don't know. We can double check in a few minutes. And the one that nobody wants to use is 1. And I like this chart because it helps visualizing like what is happening. Like, yes, we have some rejection of 3 and 4, but again, it's not that big. But rejection of 1 is like crazy, right? Oh yes, thank you, Scarlett. Yes, activity 2 is logistic and Gompers. Activity 3 is this. Okay, so again, you don't have to get this chart. Again, it's not difficult to get the chart. It's just wait a minute. What I did, I think I used this. If you have never worked with this, is right here. And then what the only thing that I did differently was I included 1 with 0.1, 0.1, 0.1, like this. And I added this to the same chart. Again, it's not that complicated to do it, but okay. So that has to do with reporting of age, which is one of the most significant things that we're going to be working on this semester, essentially like trying to understand what is happening with age. But we also have things going on with sex composition. And here, a good like side note, or essentially like a clarification note, we in demography, people working with these things, we make a significant distinction between sex and gender. So the things that we're going to be doing right now have to do with sex, not gender, right? Gender in English is more, they're used more interchangeably. In Spanish, we make a huge distinction between sexo y género, but it's the same difference in English. So let's talk about what's happening with sex, okay? The thing is, yes, we know that even biological sex is not only two. There's a slight percentage of people who display characteristics of both, but in general, we could split the population in two, like men and women. Okay, so we would also expect certain distribution of population by sex. Okay, and in order to analyze what is happening, and these actually are going to help us to understand more of the history of the population, or trying to understand what is happening in terms of social, economic, and even political things in the specific populations. So it is really important. So we have three ways to estimate this thing, or to see what's happening with sex. The first one is called the masculinity proportion, essentially the proportion of men in the population. The second one is sex ratio, and this is, we're going to see the formulas is, okay, per 100 men, how many women we have. So essentially that's a way that we want to see it. And then what we call excess or deficit of males in this population. We can also work the other way, the femininity proportion, the sex ratio, and excess or deficit of females. But these are the standards that we use internationally, so we can compare populations, okay? So let's start with the first one. The masculinity proportion is really straightforward. It's just taking the population, the total population that you have, and estimate the percentage of men. Just like that, okay? So the standard for this index, or for this measure, is around 49% of the population. So we know there are more women than men in the population. So it's about 49, 51. Some countries probably go to 48, 47 versus 52, 53. But in general terms, it's around half, with more women than men in the population, okay? But we can do it also for age groups or for individual ages. And this is where we actually see some interesting things, okay? I don't know if I have the plot. No. Okay, so let me plot this really quick, the individual ages. So let me go here, and I'm just gonna do it for 2000, okay? So what we will have is the proportion. So it's gonna be the total number of males. I'm gonna use the population without the prorating, because I don't have the male and female populations. By the total. So as you can see, yes, if I get the total, in Mexico we get like 48.7%, which is pretty close to 49, right? But if we do this by individual age, what we have is a really interesting behavior, right? This pattern. For the first years, we have more than 50%, and then we see this decline, and it kind of stays around the same level until like we reach really old ages. And this has to do with, contrary to most people believe, like everybody knows that there are more women than men in the population, but really few people know that there are more baby boys being born than baby girls. Essentially, we have more males being born in the population, and that has to do with increased mortality. So if we have two babies, for instance, one boy and one girl, they have the same health issues and they have the same health problems, and we only have one like medical thing to treat them, chances are they're gonna go with the boy, because chances are girls are gonna make it. So they're stronger, even as a babies, and even before being born. Pregnancies, when the pregnancies of a girl are more healthy, are healthier, and more likely to end up in a good term than for boys. So yes, we are the weakest sex in this scenario. So for that reason, naturally, there are more male borns being born. Yes, exactly. So this is the behavior that we have for this first index. Okay, I'm running out of time. So the next ones are really easy also to estimate. The second one is the sex ratio. Is similar to the one that we had before, but now instead of using the total population down here, we're gonna take the female population. So it's males divided by females times 100. And again, we can do it for the total population or for specific age groups. I'm just gonna do it here. So I'm doing 2000, so it's gonna be males divided by females. So again, since we have more women than men in the population, in the total value, the sex ratio should be below 1. But again, for the first years of age or life, is going to be above 1, because why? We have more boys being born than girls. And then these kinds of changes, and as we reach certain age, this continues declining. Okay? And the last one is what is called excess or lack of males, or we can do it for females in the population. Is just taking the difference between males and females and then divided by the total population, and then seeing what is happening. So if we have more males than females, this would be a positive value, so it's going to be an excess of males. And if we have more females than males, we will have a lack of males. So again, it can work both ways. So I'm not going to estimate it, but again, you can estimate. This is really easy, really fast to do it, because I want to jump to this. Well, these are the, look, I have the plot in here. So these are the values that we find in Mexico. Not a big deal. We have, yes, more women than men. So we have this excess, or in this scenario, lack of males in the population. And this is the sex ratio, which, as you can see, looks pretty similar to the masculinity proportion, but instead of being around 50, it's around 100. So again, not big deal. So I was telling you, these are really important things, because we can identify certain things happening in populations, okay? So I have here 3 basic questions, okay? And I'm gonna go to my friend Google to finding this. So sex ratio by countries, okay? So what is the sex ratio for the world? Again, so do we know if there's something going on that we should have a sex ratio different than the one that we have for Mexico? In Mexico, we have around 0.95, 0.94, and so on. So let's see what happens. So we have 1.07, which essentially is telling us that we have more men than women in the population in the world. But in Mexico, we have more women than men. So from here, there are some differences. And we can see that this is generally common for specific age groups, and then in advanced age groups, it changes, okay? And this is at birth, we have more men being born than girls, but in the total is around 102, and we can see differences in specific countries. So let's see the total. Look what happened. Okay. In the total, for instance, Qatar and United Arab Emirates, they have a sex ratio of 3.39, 2.56. So what do you think is happening in there? In 2 seconds. You can answer that. What is happening in these countries that have these crazy sex ratios? What am I doing? Okay. I didn't know I could copy and paste that like that. Whoa! Okay. Where are you? Where is the chat? Okay. Well, that is something that we are not going to see in these countries. And yes, that's a big issue in these countries. But essentially what is happening in these countries are countries of migration. If you pay attention to what's happening at birth, we have, yes, more men than women, but not huge numbers. But then look what happens around age 25 to 54. This is when this goes crazy, as well as this, and for Qatar down here. So that means that there's no way that we have only like this number of sex, what is value for sex ratio at birth, and then suddenly something happened. And yes, two things can happen. One, between ages 14 and 15, they're killing lots of women, so this goes up. Or what is happening in these countries is they have lots of migration, male migration to these countries. And they're building the stadiums for the World Cup, and there's a lot of economic growth and so on. So yes, we can see that. What Frida was saying, it can be seen here at birth, what is happening. In these countries, for instance, 111, 111, 110. So what is happening in these countries, essentially in India and China and a lot of Asian countries, and countries that have a controlled fertility, is that, for instance, in China, sonograms are against the law. So you are not allowed to know the gender of your baby. Even though physicians know, you are not allowed to find out. Why? Because since in China, even though they got rid of this policy, there was this policy of the only one child. What was happening is that when they were finding out that they were having girls, they were getting abortions. Because if they had a boy, they could have a second child. But if they were having a girl, that was it. So that's the reason sonograms are forbidden in China, but still, of course, you can get illegal things in China. So yes, that explanation of gender inequality and preference is here, expressed here, and you can see from the sex ratio at birth. And then some other countries that have different things, but again, I could spend here a lot of time. No. I will explain that probably in Spanish in a few seconds. But again, these are basic indicators. I'm sorry, I am beyond time. I went over the